You may have noticed that Trump has not been playing Hearthstone as of recently, and this isn't just because Fractured and Alterac Valley was a bad expansion. There is a reason that's been going on for a little bit now that has basically stopped Trump from enjoying Constructed. This is something that I have been feeling a lot more recently as new expansions get released and the design philosophy as Hearthstone has changed a little bit, but I am sure that Trump will come back for the next expansion when there is something new to try. But in the meantime, let's discuss why Trump isn't playing Hearthstone. Now, if you don't know who Trump is or need a little bit of a refresher, Trump is one of the OG content creators when it comes to classic Hearthstone and has been playing the game all the way up till Fractured and Alterac Valley. Trump is known from his Trump teachings to his standard decks to his wacky arena adventures. Trump has basically been the grandfather when it comes to a lot of the Hearthstone content that we see today. But what makes Trump so special in terms of Hearthstone is his play style and what he liked to do in the game. If you ask yourself what type of deck does Trump enjoy playing the most, a lot of people would say a slower kind of control deck. And that's exactly right. He is the mayor of Value Town for a reason. But as of recently, we have not seen a ton of value decks in Hearthstone. A lot of the decks in the game seem to want to kill their opponents as fast as possible. And this includes the new control decks in the metagame, where they're often trying to find a win condition that ends the game quicker than rather dragging it out. And that's exactly the issue. Trump's favorite deck is attrition based control decks. The idea of slowly grinding your opponent out of resources until they no longer can kill you is his favorite type of deck. Every single card you have, you want to get as much value as possible, and you want to use these cards when they're at their most optimal. But that's exactly the issue. These type of attrition control decks no longer exist in Hearthstone, and they don't seem like they're coming back anytime soon, which is super weird because before the release of Demon Hunter, we basically saw some type of deck in every single metagame that was a playstyle with control attrition. The last time we had a deck like this was in Rise of Shadows with the Dr. Boom control mech warrior. And that seems like an absolute lifetime ago, but the reason why they didn't make these decks again is because a lot of players don't like playing against them. And when a game lasts more than 25 minutes, it starts to have a concern for the player base that games are too long and they don't want to play the game anymore. And with the Dr. Boom Mad Genius warrior from Rise of Shadows, we saw this at the most extreme where games could last up to 45 minutes if it was a mirror match. And this isn't the only type of deck that really showcased why people don't like attrition based decks, but this is the most extreme example and was definitely the turning point in design. We saw a lesser extent of this during the Forge the Baron's Control Priest, but this isn't really the same thing as attrition because this was a lot of random generation and much more frustrating to play against. So rather than building these attrition based decks in Hearthstone, we have seen control decks which still exist in the format, just a much different version of control. But the issue is if you don't actually include attrition based decks in the format anymore, you're basically excluding a player base that only wants to play them. And when these type of decks don't exist, that means the metagame is faster and it's harder to build these type of value decks because by the time you actually get to use value, you're often just dead. And with the release of Demon Hunter, we saw this at the most extreme of just being consistently dead on turn 4, 5, and 6. And that means value does not exist at all. And when value doesn't exist, the mayor of Value Town has really nothing to enjoy and therefore won't play Hearthstone anymore. On top of this, we have seen a combo metagame for quite some time. With the release of Fractured and Alterac Valley, it has been less of an extent of a combo meta, but still, there has been a combo meta. And the issue is that when there is a combo meta in the format without drastic changes like a rotation, which will be coming soon with the next expansion release, there's always going to be some type of combo meta game. And on top of this, with the combo meta game, there is an insane amount of card draw potential in the format, which means even if you're playing some kind of control deck, a lot of decks are able to refill their hand very quickly, which means there's a never-ending onslaught of resources. And that's the one thing Control had over a lot of the decks in the format, is that they were slower, but they were able to build up resources to react to what your opponent is doing until they didn't have a hand anymore. So Control is just so much weaker than it used to be, while aggro decks are getting stronger and stronger, with combo decks also being in the format that just basically counter these slow decks. There is no deck that Trump actually enjoys playing. And it's kind of sad because when Trump does his star reviews before an expansion comes out, you can kind of see that he's he's already going to get disappointed with the expansion because he already knows where the meta is going to be headed.
And unfortunately, I don't think Fractured and Alterac Valley will make a big impact on the meta due to the presence of strong aggro decks and strong infinite value / OTK decks, and even the presence of a strong aggro deck, which eventually does have an infinite value engine. We gotta make some room for these control decks to shine. These value decks.
And that's okay, because when you don't enjoy standard, there are other game modes in Hearthstone that you can play, like Arena, which Trump played quite often. You have to remember though, Trump has literally played this game since closed beta. That is almost 8 years ago at this point. That's a very long time. So when you're playing a game like Arena and you consistently see the same cards over and over again, just a little bit stronger from new expansions, and when it feels like Arena is all about drafting the particular cards that you need, it just feels really bad to play Arena. So it's quite understandable that when it comes to Arena, Trump has probably played it so much that he just doesn't want to play anymore. The novelty of Arena has kind of been worn off, and he's probably looking for other games to excite him, like TFT or Inscription. I also don't play a lot of Arena, but I can imagine with some of these new cards being extremely strong, it definitely changes the way that Arena has been played over the years. But there is actually one bigger thing that I think is the reason why Trump just doesn't play Hearthstone nearly as much. When Battlegrounds first came out, Trump definitely tried to play it, but it didn't seem like he was a super big fan of it. So he was looking forward to playing their new game mode, Mercenaries. And that's because Mercenaries would replicate what Hearthstone Classic was like, with a lot of information given to you and you had to make the best decision possible. So it was the most strategic game mode technically for Hearthstone. But for Trump, the game mode did not land exactly how he wanted to, because the problem with Mercenaries is that in order for you to get to the fun PvP section, you have to grind out quite a bit, which means a lot of downtime is going to be used for grinding up those mercenaries. Now, Trump could have actually put money into Mercenaries and helped speed up the grind a little bit, but he was trying to play it free to play. And even if you wanted to put money into Mercenaries, you still have to grind up quite a bit in order for you to A, get all the equipment for your Mercenaries, but on top of that, max your characters out, which most of the people were already doing, which is super unfortunate because it looked like Trump was actually really enjoying the game mode.
So that's a good idea. Runic Slam on 6. Lightning Bolt. I wonder if Runic Slam was a bait also.
Basically, this gives theoretically plus 60 health across all my guys.
So at the time of Age of Empire 4 was being released, this was a perfect time for Trump to try other games and just get a break from Hearthstone. He was also playing different games like Inscription, and he's been posting TFT as of recently, but I'm sure Trump will be back at the next rotation where hopefully there will be a lot more value for the mayor of Value Town. We will have to wait to see what the core set brings and what the new expansion looks like, but unfortunately the quest lines from United and Stormwind are still going to be in standard. I appreciate you watching the video, and if you ended up enjoying it, I would really appreciate a like, and go check one of the other documentaries I've done. You'd probably like those. If you like this one, you look fantastic.